Hello. So I noticed recently that a lot of the time when I develop, I don't build out. I've always got dummy data that I always generate, but I never actually use dummy data. I always end up building out an entire API. And I thought, why do I do that? Why do I make it harder on myself to prototype? And wouldn't it be easier if I could just define my types and then basically build things out with fake data and then swap it out with a backend API? I think a lot of people do this anyway. I usually just build the API because I find it easier. And so I thought, the composables that I use for working with the backend API, what if I just built the exact same composables, but instead of using a real API, we just use something like local storage. So I'm just going to try and build something like that. And then I'm going to make it so that you can have like a timeout. So maybe like a 500 millisecond timeout for all the requests. So I can code loading spinners and stuff like that. So yeah, let's give it a try. Currently, I'm building something called QChat. Let's jump into that. And oh, that's right. The last thing I was working on was this create dialog. Actually, maybe I'll quickly finish that off. No, I'm not going to finish that off. I don't want to get distracted. Basically, this is going to start off as a Discord clone, and then I'm going to sort of make it my own. And it's basically like Discord for developers, where you can add your own REPLs, you can add your own syntax highlighting, and you can curate a chat experience with developers that allows people to show results of code like within the chat. It's a really cool idea. At least I think it is. That's why I'm building it. So let's cd into. We might go into front and then jump into packages. In fact, yeah, let's jump in here. Let me zoom in once just so people can see things a bit clearer. And so I'm using something called Orion Pina ORM, which is a package that I'm building just to help me sort of deal with my backend. You know, it handles all the cool stuff with the backend requests. I won't go into that right now. Let's just create a copy of that, and we'll call this Orion Pina ORM local. And if this works out really well, what I'll actually do is make it so that Orion Pina ORM can have different backends. So it could be a backend that's a real API, or it could be a backend that's using local storage. Actually, maybe I could just do that right now. No, that's going to be a lot more work. So let's just make it a separate package for now. And if this works out and turns out to be a good idea, then I can make it so that you can essentially swap out the backend with Orion Pina ORM. Okay, so let's come in here and say resources, use create resource. So this is currently what I'm using to create a resource. And I might zoom out. Just let me know if this ends up being too small for all of you. And I'll have a look at what I'm doing here. Looks like I've got a few imports that I'm not actually using anymore. And let's come down here. And essentially, I'm just going to change the parts where I insert data. Get rid of that. You can see this was a bit of a work in progress. Yeah, so we create a merged version of the form. And I do a repo.save here if options.persist is equal to true. So maybe what I could actually do is just set options equal to persist. And make it so that you can easily skip doing a backend request. That could be a good idea. Oh no, this is just saying persisted to pin your ORM. Okay, so maybe that's not a good idea. All right, so let's come in here and take the part where we've got all the error handling. We're not going to deal with any of that. We're going to keep it super simple. And then we'll come in here and we'll use local storage. And we might even use local storage, which is coming out of view use. You can see I'm just getting my bearings here. Yeah, so how about for, okay, this is for create resource. How about for the resource? Oh, you know what? I've started with the wrong one. Let's go to fetch resources. It's going to make more sense with this. Okay, we're not going to deal with pagination at all. We're not going to actually make a backend request. We're not going to do any error handling stuff. Here we go. So if options.persist. Yeah, and before we do any of that, essentially we'll just add this into local storage. All right, so now under resources, instead of a ref here, I'm going to say use local storage. And do I need to restart Vola, or maybe I just don't have view use? I'm pretty sure I've got view use. Yeah, I do. Let's try that again. Okay, but it looks like I'm just using the types from view use. Yeah, I'm just using view use shared. So we want view use core as well, I think it's called. So let's cd into packages, Orion, Pinya ORM local, and we'll add view use / core. Give that a second to come in. And I already know how that's going to import, at least. Oh, hang on, it looks like it is installed. No, it's not. We just checked it, didn't we? View use core. All right, I don't know how this was even working before if that wasn't installed, but there we go. It's installed now. And we'll add in here, use local storage. There we go. And then we need to give this an ID, so what it's going to be called in local storage, and the default, which is going to be an empty array. So how about we call this, we're going to want the name of the entity in there. So there we go. We've got the entity name here. And we'll call this, I usually like to give it a pretty long name, the name of the composable itself. And then we'll do resources, so the name of the thing. And how about we say resources dot and then the entity. I think that makes sense. And that's actually, that might be it. We don't need rest anymore, so I can get rid of that. And now let's just start culling stuff that we don't need. So we don't need any of this meta stuff. We're essentially just making a really simple version of all of this. Get rid of all of that. We don't need next page, 2-page, previous page. On table request, probably not. It'd be cool if I could implement that later on. That's essentially just a little helper I've got to allow me to easily use pagination and stuff like that with my backend. All right, so let's just cull all this stuff. We won't need data anymore. We will need fetching though. So we're going to have to create a new variable for that. So how about we come up here and we say const fetching. And I'm actually starting to change the terminology in my packages for this these days. So I might as well go ahead and do that now. Use index resources. So instead of fetch, I'm now using the word index just because it's closer to the composition API. So let's grab all of these things that say fetch. Maybe we'll go capital, make sure that's filtered by capital case there. And then we'll change all of those to index and see if there's any other instances of fetch. There is. So let's grab all of those and change those to index with a lowercase I. Cool. All right. What else have we got to do? So we got indexing, has errors we won't have to worry about, validation errors, standard errors, any error related stuff. Sort. Maybe we could have sort. No, we're going to keep it super simple. This is literally just going to be like, I'm prototyping. Let's just get some data in there so we can see what it's going to look like. Okay, so let's change that to indexing. And let's say const indexing is a ref. And let's set that ref equal to false by default. And we got a paginator there, so we can get rid of that. A lot of this is just culling stuff. I don't think I'll even need the config either. No, it's not even being used. We're not going to need a query. And we won't even need any options there. Now, one thing I do want to do is just have a timeout. And usually I'd use, actually, you know what? Let's do this properly. It's not that much extra effort. I'm going to go to the plugin and allow us to set the timeout. Orion provider config. And let's change the name of that to Orion local provider config. There we go. We won't have an API endpoint. We won't have request errors. We won't have any error notifiers. All we want is the dummy timeout. So what would I call that? Maybe like mock request milliseconds or something like that. Hmm. Timeout milliseconds is a bit of a mouthful. All right, I think I'll leave it as that for now, just because it's very clear what it is. All right, let's rename that from Orion plugin to Orion local plugin. And no, we won't. So let's just come in here and provide something called. Actually, I don't think we even need provide and inject. We can just use some state. So let's come in here and just say config state.ts, something like that. This can literally just be a file because we don't need anything reactive in here. Yeah. There we go. And then we can use the type for Orion local plugin. Orion local plugin options, let's call it that. Orion plugin becomes Orion local plugin. And then the options you get in the state here is going to be that. And let's just give this a default value. We're not going to need this. Hang on, didn't I just set the config here? Orion provider config. How have I done this? I've done this in a kind of complicated way, haven't I? So we've jumped into types. Okay, so that's now Orion local provider config. Okay, so let's pull that out. Orion local. What are we calling it here? Orion. Yeah, okay, so this one's just, we're only going to inject one thing, so we don't need a provider key here. So let's just call it Orion. Yeah, we'll call it Orion local provider config without a key. Okay, I'm happy with that. So we won't need a provider key anymore. Orion local config. I'll fix that up, even though I don't think it'll be a problem. Okay, so when you install the plugin, we don't need that. All we need is this one here, Orion local provider config. That's what gets passed into the options when we install the plugin, and that's the one that's got that mock request timeout milliseconds that we set before. Okay, so when someone's installing this plugin, they get that now, and the other thing is we want that key to be imported. So let's come in here. Yeah, well, we don't really need to import it. We can just go ahead and just paste that directly in there. No, and of course we then want to provide just the options in this case. Yeah, hang on. I think I decided though I don't want to use provide and inject. Oh, goodness, Luke. So we're not going to use provide here. We're just going to say config state, and in that case we're not even going to need get config anymore. So holy crap, this is going to simplify the crap out of things. I can just delete that, and all we do is say config state is equal to options. But we might have to do object.assign there now that I think about it. Because I don't think you can just reassign a variable like that. Let's just see if it works. Object.assign into the config state those options. That gets imported. And there we go. So essentially it just gives us a state of the options that were passed through to the plugin. Cool. All right. Let's get that imported. Is that what it's called? Oh yeah, this was just going to be Orion. Orion local, and we can just call that config now. Oh, a lot of renaming. Anyway, this is fun. Sometimes you just got to explore a little bit to find exactly what you want. There you go. Orion local config. Did I change the name of that? Maybe I didn't. Types. Yeah, I did. Okay, this might be a Vola thing. Give that a second to load. Okay, so it looks like that's working now. And the last thing I want to do is make this optional. And then what we could do is give it a value. Actually, maybe, what if we don't make it optional? We just give it a value there by default. Will that work? I think it will. We'll set it to 500 milliseconds by default. And that's not a Boolean, that is a number. Okay. Woo! All of that so that in use index resources, we can now get our config. So all we have to do is import the config state. Yeah, here we go. That's going to be config state, there it is there, dot mock request timeout milliseconds. And when the timeout is done, so when we run this index, we're probably gonna have to give it mock data to begin with. So we give it the model class. Maybe as a second parameter, we give it mock data. No, there's probably a better way to do this. How would we do? How would we? Because I want to make it easy to swap out. Yeah, okay, so it would actually have to sit in the options. You can't make it the second parameter because then it makes it harder to swap out. Yeah, all right, let's just put it directly in the options. So to do that, I think I can just go, how about this? Mock data. And we'll set that to, a lot of this I can delete while I'm here. Search, filters, yeah, that's all gonna go. And this is going to be an array of model type. So essentially we can pass through into the options the mock data. We can still have immediate, notify an error we won't need, persist, and persist by is still relevant. Limit is not relevant. Maybe it is. No, I'm going to keep it simple for now. And that's not relevant either. So let's go in here, call out some of this stuff. A douche, a douche. Yep, we're not going to need any of that in the API. We won't need that. We will want to know if we're indexing. We will want to know the resources. And then this is all error-related stuff, which will be irrelevant. We definitely want the repo back so we can work with it. And we won't need any of this. Cool. All right, we're getting close now. I don't know what's wrong with my typing there. I feel like I fixed that up once, but now it hasn't been fixed up. We don't need that. It's always fun when you can delete code. Cool. Okay, let's comb through some of these things. We need that still. We need that. Options. Yes, this sorts out the options that get passed through. Our callbacks. Yeah, we've got an on index. We add that to the callback. A function that just adds to our on index. resources, which are all serialized and deserialized for us. Thank you, view use. Okay. So now we can say indexing.value is equal to true. And now we've got this really cool timeout available to us that allows us to, actually, maybe we'll have to do this in a promise. We might actually have to go return new promise. Let's have a resolve and a reject there. Actually, can I do just a resolve? Just let you do that with a promise? We'll find out. There we go. And then when we're done, we resolve that. Index.value then becomes false. And that's where we check if options if persist is what it should be. And we also want to say resources.value is equal to the mock data. Okay. Here we go. Resources.value is equal to in this case, it will quite simply be options.mock data. And if we don't have any, we'll just give it an empty array. All right. When that's all done, we can then resolve this. Do I need to give it a value? I think you could just resolve with void. Okay, I want it in the type argument. All right, let's go up to index. I mean, it is right there on the return type. Okay, I guess it wants it here. So it wants to know, hey, what am I getting back? Well, we don't need promise because it's already got async set up. So I think I can just do void there like that. Okay, no, you do have to add the promise part in. Promise void. All right. So what's wrong with that? This is all within set timeout. Yeah, config state. Let me just check this. Config state dot mock request timeout is a boolean. Git. That ain't right. It's actually a number. All right, so something was happening, I think, with Vola. It just wasn't up to date. All right, seems to be working now. So that gets resolved. Don't need filters, don't need search, don't need aggregates, don't need queue table. We're getting pretty close. If immediate, index it straight away. Yeah, this is a similar API to what I had before now. So now I can go ahead and test this out. One thing I have to do, before I forget, package.json, we need to change this to the name of this project, Orion Pina. So we just tacked on local at the end there. Local. All right, so let's include this now in our app. It's package.json. I'm basically just going to copy what they've got there. When I say they, I mean me. All right, so now we've got the local version of Orion Pina ORM. So I should be able to say, let's just create a new terminal and we'll cd into app, get an install so that it sets everything up correctly. And then when that's done, I'll just run p npm dev. Okay. So where should I test this out? I think in the main layout, this is where I was getting all the I was going to get all the servers. Yeah, here we go. So we get the chat servers, and at the moment I'm just using sample data like this. And this is where we can check if it works. So I want to say import use index resources, and that's coming from Quasar Army Pina ORM local. Okay, so I haven't set up my indexes right there. Haven't set up a few things here. Instead of use fetch resources, we're calling this use index resources. Did I name the file correctly? All right. Let's open that next door. Use index resources options. Yes. And then use indexer resources return. There we go. For the plugin now. Do we even need a plugin anymore? We do, because we give it the state there. What if we just didn't? No, we'll keep it as a plugin. It usually makes things easier. Orion local plugin is what that should now be called. Orion local plugins. Let's rename that as well. And plugin. What else was there? We got a Orion local config. We might actually need that config as well, which I think comes from types. Orion local config. Okay, there we go. So we get those set up. Now we can go ahead and get that installed in app. And I'm going to do that by, oh, what have I done there? Going into my boot directory. And let's copy Orion, and we'll call this Orion local. Let's let Quasar know about it. Orion dash local. So Quasar knows about that, and now this will be dash local, and then we call this Orion local plugin. Mock request timeout milliseconds, and we'll just redo what's already there. Oh, that's a type. Orion local. Is it? That doesn't seem right. Whoops. Yeah, we want the actual plugin itself. Cool. So that's installed now, so those settings should easily be accessible. And it means in one place we can easily just change this configuration. In fact, the way I like to do it is go one step further and say, let's call this, in my config, Orion Pina ORM local. And I don't do this for smaller projects. I only do this for larger projects, which honestly is all I build these days. I'm not as interested in the small stuff. I probably should be, to be honest. I think I get a little bit distracted by all of the bigger stuff. So that should come out of local Orion local. I'm confusing myself now. Yeah, here we go. We just want essentially that config file. Boom, boom. That's all wrong now because it's just mock timeout in milliseconds. Now that seems like a lot of work just to get that in there, but it means this is going to be way more friendly to future developers because all they have to do is set up their configuration and they're good to go. And this is going to then be set globally. So I don't want to pass it directly through there. Essentially, I've moved that into its own file in this config file here. And we're calling it Orion Pina ORM local. Thank you. Sweet. So that's done. Quasar knows about it. Provided that I haven't messed anything up. Let's just see what happens here. Oop, oop, oop. Okay, failed to resolve. Get config from use fetch resource. All right. What did I do there? Okay, whole lot of nothing. That makes sense. Because we don't have get config anymore. We just have the config. Okay, so this is going to lint everything now. It's going to notify me of problems. Oh, that's all right. It just means we won't get to see Something working as soon as I would have liked to have seen it. That's okay. Yeah, okay. Console.log fetch here. Just going to give myself a reminder of where we'll do this. Local storage find here. I'm also going to change this from fetch to find. Sweet. Actually, I wonder why that was resolve unref is declared. Yeah, okay, it's just that one. I think maybe computed ref should be importable from view use core. Really? Pretty sure it does. Okay. I think I'll get away with that though. So let's see what error it gives me next. Okay, something in use update resource. And we can go through a bunch of these. Delete stuff that we won't need. Mostly the error reporting related stuff. No, I think that'll do. All right, what do you got for me now? Use create resource, probably the same error. Yes, so it's mostly, I think, the importing stuff that's going to be showstoppers for us, and then we should be able to push on. So let's find... Okay, so I did do a little bit of work on the use create resource as well. Okay, now we got use rest, which we won't even need at all for this package, which will probably give us a few new errors. Let's get rid of that entirely. And we won't need any of the error-related stuff. That might come in handy, so we'll leave that for now. Use remove resource. Okay then, we're getting there. I hope so. Call that and that. And get rid of all the error-related stuff. Console.log. Local storage, delete here. And back we go. Okay, so that doesn't exist anymore because I deleted it. What's next? Okay, so it's going to be use rest in all of these. So let's go ahead and open all of them up. That one. No, I'm not even going to need that at all. Not going to need that at all. Anything that's using use rest can go. There's another one. Huzzah. And the other thing I did was I just got rid of the download, use download resource, which doesn't look like it's exporting from there anyway. Oh, there we go. Let's just check that we got sail running. I'm just going to jump into another project I have running because I end up with some clashes with sail, which I need to fix at some point. So let's just run sail down there because I'm pretty sure I was running something there at some point. And now let's cd into back API and we'll run sail up there. Okay. All right. So now I should be able to, oh, there we go. I'm already signed in. And we'll go to /chat, which is what I'm working on. No doubt that will give me some sort of errors. Oh, okay. We actually got pretty far. Yeah, so this is the idea. The idea is you can have your own REPLs. And the stuff I've been working on lately, which is the cool part, is users can actually make their own REPLs. So this is just ES module, and essentially you'll be able to say, hey, these are the REPLs I want to be able to have in my environment. This is how you display it within the chat, and this is how it gets displayed in an editor. So at the moment, I've just got this set up for Vue using Quasar. But if you wanted to add your own REPLs for Vue using, some other library, or Vue using Vue use, or if you wanted to use an entirely different REPL here, like something for editing JSON, you could do that as well. And you could then say, this is what the REPL looks like. This is how you kind of like edit the data and manipulate it. And then this is what it looks like when it's displayed. So there we go. Man, I still think this is just so cool. All right. So the whole reason I was doing this was to try and make it easier for us to kind of add and work with new data. So I want to make it so that we can get these servers. Yeah, that's right. I was making it so we can get those servers using our new use index resources. Let's see if that works. And the way I do this, I'll show you how I actually do this in the real world. I would then create a file within the folder of that file that I'm in. So I never have main layout directly in layouts. I always nest it in a folder so that I can easily have these composables and extract out logic. And I'll create a new file there called use index. And what are we indexing? I think I call them chat sites. Let me just quickly check that. Chat servers. All right. So a new file in there, use, and I usually do this, chat servers indexer. And there we go. Composable. And now this is the one that's going to use that. So this is the new package that we've just been building. And we can say const indexer is equal to that. And that's going to receive the thing that we're indexing. So in this case, this is a chat server. And I should have a opinion or a model for that. Just restart Vola. There we go. Get that imported. And I'm also going to add immediate here. So I should still get, yeah, here we go. Immediate, set that equal to true. And now we've got this fancy new mock data that we can add in there. So for mock data, we're just going to pass through, our mock data, which is chat server index. Here we go. That's what I called it. Chat server index. There we go. Get that imported. So now essentially it's going to use that as mock data, and then we'll just return this here. Now this might look a little bit weird what I'm doing here, with like the whole triple dot, spreading that in the return type. This is all very, very intentional. All of my composables that I push to the side all get built the same way. And everybody on the team knows this. We all know how we extract our logic. We know that within main layout, if we need to take anything out of here, any logic, and push it aside, that we're going to do it like this. And if anybody needs to add anything else onto this indexer, they can now come in here and just add it on really easily. I really think that this is one of the best developing experiences I've ever had. This idea of taking these common tasks you do, like indexing, getting rid of as much of the boilerplate as you can with a composable like this, then chucking it to the side so that it doesn't pollute your Vue files. Cool. So now that that's working, the next thing to do is check if it actually works. What do we call it? Chat server indexer. So I can get rid of that sample data now. We'll say here, const chat server indexer is equal to use chat servers indexer. Yeah, that should be servers plural. And that's it. So now we should be able to, another thing I usually do with indexes, and I'm thinking of adding this into the composable, is I'll say const chat servers. And I would never say here const servers. I never shorten things, so I always want it to be clear to other developers in the future. I really don't see any benefit from shortening that in this case. I always want it to be really clear what my variables are. So we'll set that equal to a computed, and that's going to return. I think this gets auto-imported now. Yeah, I'm trying out the auto-import thing, see if I like it or not. A little bit scared of it, but I also think it's a cool idea. .repo .or. So essentially, when we index things, it automatically gets inserted into the repo. So in this case, all it's actually going to do is take that chat server index, insert it into the repo, but also this index is going to let us see, give us like a fake spinner. It's going to give us a fake indexing because we put that we put it in that set timeout. Yeah, so one of the whole points of this is that I can see what it would look like while it's loading. So we can easily do this sort of indexing is true and then indexing is false within here to see what it would look like in a loading state. All right, so let's return those chat servers here. Again, I just push all this stuff to the side so that I don't pollute my main layout template. I like to keep this as clean as I possibly can. So I come in here and I go, ooh, what am I working on? Oh, I'm working on the chat servers indexer. Control click, boom. Now I'm focused and I haven't got all this cruft in my vision. Okay, so chat servers indexer. Let's try and spit your servers out in here. .chat servers .value. And all that typing should work too. Look at that. All the typing just flowed through. I actually love it when that just works. Okay, so let's see what went wrong now. Orion local config.ts does not provide an export named. Okay. Where is that happening? Why am I getting index.ts there? Yeah, okay, so it looks like I've just missed something inside of our index.ts file here. I think it forces me to say type and then the thing when they're types. Oh, it works. And look at this. This takes a second to load because it's a 500 millisecond timer on that. And now what we can do is we can say whatever we want when it's fetching that. So maybe the servers are fundamental to how the application works. And so we do something like this. We say, well, actually, let's start with this. If you don't have any chat servers, then you can't load. Oh, actually, you probably can load this stuff. Yeah, and we want them loading at the same time. All right, ignore that line of thought. But just like, you know, something you could do here is import loading from Quasar. And I'll jump into my Quasar config and just check that we've got that plugin. There we go. We got notify, but we don't have loading. So let's say loading. And that means I can do some really cool stuff. I can basically just say, hey, when this first loads up, loading.show. And then when you're done getting all of those resources, so on index, when you're done indexing, I want you to say loading.hide. So if I refresh the page now, it doesn't work. Loading.show and loading.hide. What am I doing wrong there? It looks right to me. Let's do a console.log here called show, and then one called hide here, just to check that this is coming out correctly. So we get show, but we don't get hide. You know what actually the problem might be? I've done something a bit silly here. I've already got a loading spinner implemented for authentication. So it shows a loading spinner, and I think there's being a bit of a clash there because you can only kind of use one loading spinner at a time. You don't really get to use loading spinners in different contexts. That's a story for another day. So let's call that, and let's just do something simple, which might actually be a better user experience anyway, by saying v-if when not indexing. So we'll say dot indexing dot value. This is why I like to build these composables. It makes doing stuff like this in the template so much easier. And then we'll do a Q spinner inside our else statement. But what I always do is like to comment that out and just make the spinner look good to begin with. There we go. So that needs to be a bit bigger. So let's say the size of that is equal to large. And let's set the color equal to our primary color for our application. That needs to be centered. So why would that? Okay, that's in the scroll area. That's kind of a silly place for it to be. So let's pull that out of the scroll area. And how about we put it under the button as well? And we comment the button out. There's no reason you couldn't see the button. Yeah, so we might as well leave it there. But I will bring this back up here. That's going to push it to the bottom now, though. Yeah, I thought that might happen. So let's just put the spinner beforehand. All right, we'll try that. There we go. Now it gets centered, and I'm just going to go class is equal to Q margin top, maybe like medium. Yeah, try that. Yeah, I reckon that looks pretty good. At least good enough for now. So now I can come in here and comment that back out, and let's just put the v if statement dung up here, and we'll negate that, and then v else. Oh no, if we are indexing, then I want you to show the spinner, otherwise show the scroll area. So now we get the spinner, and then when it's done, that shows up. But that was weird. What went on there? Okay, so the problem was that we've got a colon here, meaning this is going to take up as much space as it can. But then the spinner, when this isn't showing, it's not taking up as much space as it can, and therefore everything just ends up in the center. So what I might do is whack that in the div and give this a class equal to col, and then we'll put the if statement on there. Let's see what that does. And there we go. We get a spinner. Huzzah! Okay. So that's pretty much it. This is really, really cool. Because now, when I'm developing, let me just show you what this would look like, actually. It's kind of fun. If I wanted to create a new thing, like a new concept. So let's just say you got the concept of a friend, like a... okay, that's a bad idea. Let me think of a better example. What's a good example that I might use? Well, the next thing we're going to have is channels. Have I got a channel module yet? No, I got the concept of a room though. Okay, but this is all new anyway. I haven't actually done anything with it. So let's just delete this, and then I'll show you how I would go ahead and do that. Actually, maybe we'll actually build it out right now as well. Yeah, let's do that. I'll show you how I would build out the next section here, which in this case is dealing with rooms. So I've got my Q draw, and inside of that, we've got a column. And essentially, I want to have a column next door to that column. So what might make more sense is to actually turn this into a row. And then wrap all of this inside of a column. Let's see if that still works. Okay, it absolutely does not. We might have to do a full height on that. Yeah, okay, it does do something funky though with our layout there. But anyway, that should be fine for the moment being. Essentially, we've got our server list on the left side there, and I'll actually end up turning that into its own component. But let's come down here and see if we can just add. Oh, how about this? If we change that to col, that's going to take the full width of the row. And instead of 80, we'll double that number and make it 160. And essentially, we want another row that's going to be our chat rooms. So let's change that to col. And we might have to put full height on there. And we'll just say background dash purple. It'll look ugly, but it'll give us a chance to see. Yeah, there we go. So you can see we got here where you can select the server. Oh, I've done something funky there. We just fix that. It's going to annoy me otherwise. So So we've got a column, col. Now, why would it do that to the button? Okay, because we need to have item center in there. Otherwise, it gets stretched out. Is it item center or justify? Yeah, there we go. It's been fixed up. So now we want to be able to add another column here where you can select the channel. And this one is actually going to be a bit wider, so we'll need some more space. How about we set this to 220? Let's see what that looks like. I'm sick of having to refresh the page here. I don't know what's going on with this and why I have to do that. Hot module reload. I think my hot module reload is getting affected by some of these REPLs in here. And I don't know how, but I'll have a look at fixing that later on. Let's get my YouTube comments open just in case people are saying things. I don't want to miss anything. Okay, so let's give this a fixed width of 80 pixels. And I'm happy to do that in line. Okay. That's not going to work because I've got a col on it. But I should be able to give that a fixed width of 80. And since this has col, it takes up the rest of the space. Yeah, there we go. And that's not enough space. So let's just figure out what our optimal space is. Maybe like 320. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now we want to put channels inside of there. So to do that, we're going to create the concept of a channel. So we say hyphen module new, and you can think of this as a type. Usually a module is just a model. Hyphen module new. Nope, I'm in API, I'm in the wrong directory. Okay, so let's exit that and we'll split that. Hyphen module new. This is for a channel. And now for that channel, what data are we going to need? Well, we'll need the name of the channel. So it's coming here and it's going to have a string. Let's change added to string there. And that's going to be the name of the channel. That might be all that we need for now. What else would you need? You got an ID, you got a name, make that an empty string by default. I don't know, you'd have a relationship to a server as well. Is that worth doing now? Yeah, maybe it is. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So we'll say this belongs to, and we have to pull that out of there. Unfortunately, sometimes Vola just has a spat. I don't know if it's Vola or something else. I shouldn't just blame Vola. But sometimes it just has a spat and I don't get any of my auto imports working. And this belongs to a server. So we return here a chat server. And how? Via the chat server ID. So let's come in here and we'll have a string here, which is our chat server ID because you're using UUIDs. Let's make both of those strings. Actually, this one can be null though, so I might actually change that to an attr. There we go. And that could be a string or it could be null. So why is belongs to not working here? Got another one I can use as a reference. Oh, did I forget the @ I did forget the @ symbol. And yeah, it comes out of decorators, which is where I pulled it from. Yep. So what have I done wrong here? Duplicate name. Yeah, okay, instead of name, of course, that would be the chat underscore server. All right, let's do the inverse of that relationship. And this is a has many relationship. What's it got many of? Channel. So let's go ahead and get that imported. And that's going to be via the chat server ID. And so we call this channels, plural. And what's that going to return back? An array of all of those channels. Cool. And nothing else needs to change there. I'm pretty sure that relationship is now set up correctly. Now, what we should be able to do is come into our chat server, look at the sample data there, and if I do a control space, and everything has worked correctly. Oh man, when you're creating a lot of files, at least for me, a lot of things with Vola often just don't work. Yeah, like that, I'm pretty darn sure that should be typing for me right now. What happens if I get rid of the name? Yeah, okay, I don't know what's going on. All right, well, let's just do it anyway. So we should be able to say here, channels. Oh, now I don't get any of the typing for that either. That's really frustrating. But I know that it's only got a name right now. So let's create one called general, and we'll do that for both of them. General, if I do something random like this. No, it likes that as well. Oh well, that doesn't matter. So, okay, we got our channel, general, and let's just call this like app extension so we can see what it's like when there's more than one channel. Cool. So in the main layout, when we get the servers, it's going to insert all the channels as well. So let's check if that works. All right, Pina ORM, what do you got for me? There you go. We got our channels and our chat servers. So it grabbed those chat servers and it looked at the relationships. And since we defined the relationships, it was able to insert the channels as well. Now, one thing I noticed that I did wrong there is I want to change the way we generate a UUID. This is just something I noticed I had to do in order to get it to work with my backend. So we got our chat server, we got our channel. What was it? There was one. Yeah, here we go. We want to pull UUID out of there. Basically, I think it's like a different library for generating the UUID because the other one adds characters that I don't want in there, like underscores or whatever. And there we go. They're all generating correctly now. Cool. So now that that's done, what was that error? Okay, it's probably nothing. Let's see what it looks like to add those channels in. And what would we have? We would have, I think this would be a queue tabs. Or would it be a queue list? Probably just a queue tabs of channels. And then later on, we might add channel categories as well. Yeah. So in that case, we would say Hygiene component new. And this component is going to be for a module, specifically a channel. It's going to force me to use the word channel in it. And we'll call this channel route tabs. Because I always use the name of the quasar component as the last words. So channel route tabs. And we'll use the route tabs component for this. Okay. So the other thing we might want to build is the avatar. What did I do for the server? Yeah, so let's go ahead and say hygiene component new again, module for the channel, and we'll call this channel avatar. And what's the other one I had? A create dialog. We won't need that at least right now. And now that those components are created, I'm going to restart Vola already because I know that I'll need to. Main layout. And here we go. The chat server avatars tabs. Maybe that wasn't the greatest name. It doesn't matter. And then we'll come in here. This is already feeling too crowded for me. So at the back of my mind, I'm thinking I'm probably going to want to extract this, a lot of this stuff. And we're also, rather than having an else here, I'm also going to want the other scroll area to only show up if the loading is done for loading the service. And therefore, we're going to change this to an if and negate that. So if we're no longer indexing, show that scroll area. And if we're not indexing, show this scroll area with the chat server avatars tabs. All right. Whoops, wrong thing. Channel route tabs, that's what we're calling it. Channel route tabs. Get that imported, and that usually just comes out as a big block of text. And there we go. So now we know that that component is being pulled through. Now what I can do is start building this component. So a channel route tab is going to be a queue route tabs. Oh, it's actually not a route tabs. It's actually a queue tabs component, but it's got route tabs in it. So then we say queue route tab. And then the thing that we accept in here, let's get that commented out. And I don't think we'll need any emits for this, but we'll see what happens. We get all of the channels passed through here. So we want our channels, and that's coming from our modules directory. And then we say here, v-4 channel in channels. Okay, that's also going to need a key. Let's set that to the channel ID. We're also going to need, yeah, I'm pretty sure we need a name for this. So let's go channel dot, we'll use the ID for the name as well, because I'm pretty sure that needs to be unique, or at least it wants to be. Now, where are we going to go? We're going to go to, we'll open up our routes here. I'm pretty sure I already built a route for this. Chat.server.room. Oh, crap, we called it a room, not a channel. All right, I'm going to have to go back and change that from channel to room later. That's okay. That's my job. I'm not going to make you guys watch all of that. And we can also say params here. So let's send the channel down, and let's also send down the server so that it knows what context it's in. Oh my gosh, so many. Oh, that's right. We called it chat server. Okay, so we can say yes, server. Let me just open the routes up again. Yeah, server ID is going to equal server.id. There we go. And we'll also want the room ID. And that's going to be the channel ID. Because remember, I should have called this room, but I accidentally called it channel. Blah. Okay, so when you click on one of these route tabs, so on one of these channels, it should take you to a new route, which will be chat/the server ID/the room ID. Boom. Let's see if that works. What are we looking at here? Okay, we got nothing to begin with. I'm pretty sure we haven't given it the data that it needs yet. It needs the server and the channels. So we make our way back up the line. And this has got a red squiggly, which it should because we haven't given it all the data that it needs. Now we can't show this unless we've got a route with the server ID. So I'm going to come in here and say const route equals use route. Can I get that imported? Yes, I can. And we'll come in here and we'll say if that and route.params.server ID. If we've got a server ID, then we can actually show this scroll area and select a channel. You can't select a channel unless you've got a server ID. Now, how about we grab the server, the current server as well, by saying const server is equal to a computed, and we'll say that is equal to, we can actually steal the repo of this, chat servers indexer dot repo dot find, and we should be able to find the server from the route dot server ID. Ooh, doesn't like that. Yeah, because this isn't gonna, no, route dot params dot server ID. Otherwise, an empty string. That might be a way to just kind of coerce that. So what's an ID, which is a string or a number? We give it server ID. Which is a string or an array of strings. Oh, okay. I didn't even know you could do that in a route param. What I could do, I guess, is say const server ID is equal to that, and then we'll say if array is array, then we return null. So server ID should now have to be a string. And there we go, that works now. So it can't be an array anymore. So we now have our server available, and we can go ahead and send that down. So if we have a server, then we can come down here and say, no, this shouldn't be chat servers. That should be chat server, shouldn't it? It should just be servers. Chat server, singular. Yeah, chat server. Call things what they are, not what they kind of are. And there we go. So the chat server should be the server. I've done it again. Because that is definitely going to confuse people in the future, because we'll probably at some point introduce the concept of a server, which is going to be different to a chat server. Ooh. And that'll confuse people. All right, there we go. So we get the chat server. I don't know why this is being okay with that. It should be grumpy at me because I haven't given it any channels. Oh yeah, it looks like it was for a second there. So if I go channels, I should be able to go chat server dot channels. All right, looks like something's showing up. So let's come in here now and actually show something there by giving it, no, instead of a label, we want to give it the avatar icon. Let's go ahead and do that. Q avatar, whoops, avatar. And I'm just going to steal some code I did for the server one. Oh, you wouldn't have an avatar for this. Because this is going to be the full text that is the name of whatever it is. And I think I want no caps on here. Actually, what does Discord do? So I can just get an idea. I'm just opening my Discord. Yeah, it doesn't do all caps. I usually don't like all caps unless it's supposed to be screaming. So let's come in here and say channel.name. There we go. That's working. I do want to align that. So let's say align left. I think it's align items. Oh, the other thing is we have to tell it that it's vertical as well. So Q tabs, and I never like to do things directly on these components. I like to keep them raw. So let's go up a level and say channel route tabs. Oh, looks like they already are vertical. Okay, cool. That's already vertical. Align items left. Okay, what am I doing wrong there? We are using Q tabs. It might just be aligning the text that I'm doing wrong here. The component though. Yeah, here we go. And we want, yeah, tabs. No, this would be an individual tab or route tab, which is pretty much the same thing. Okay, so we can't do it that way. Geez, how do we align them though if they're vertical? Because essentially we want to say vertical, but align them to the left. Hopefully I don't have to do anything fancy here. All right, we've got alignment there, so it is a thing. And how is that done? Align center, align justify. So there's probably one that's called align start then? No, align left. Okay, there it is there. So align left is a thing, but it might not be a thing when you're doing vertical, which is why that's not showing correctly. Yeah, okay, so quickly try that just in case. No, okay, so I'm gonna like blast out a couple of ideas I have here. Text left. No, let's come up here and take a look at what we're dealing with. Okay. Text left didn't work. What flex related stuff do we have in there? Yeah, okay, so it's got to do with justifying the content to the center. All right, so maybe Q tabs isn't the right component here. Maybe what we actually want to do is, I do kind of want the tabs, the Q tab style though, where it shows like the little white icon on the left and moves it as you select new things. No, maybe, I don't know, maybe that wouldn't actually look good for this section here. Yeah, okay, change my mind. Let's change this from route tabs. So we'll do a reveal on here and we'll call this a channel. You know what, while we're at it, let's change it from a channel to a room. It's going to be a little bit annoying, but I'm going to make it happen. Room. I try not to belate things too much. Channel becomes room. Sample data, not actually using it right now. Channel becomes room. Channel becomes room. Chat server is going to have a reference to channel, which is now room. And that is rooms. Let's look for anything related to channel. Channel. Okay, can we just ignore dist? Where's that coming from? And also public. That actually makes sense. Okay, then our rooms. Ooh, almost missed that one. And we got a few components that need to be renamed as well. Cool. All right, so let's get all of those done. Components, room avatar, channel becomes room, channel becomes room, and we change that from a room route tabs to a room list rooms, plural, list, rooms list. We won't need the avatar, it's not even going to be necessary at all. I'll have to change the test file, so let's just delete that for now. We'll face that when the problem comes. And anything channel is room. Okay. See what's broken. Okay, looks like we're going to have some route issues. No. Okay, so channel route. Okay, so it would be where we're referencing that. We're now calling it a rooms list. So let's change that to rooms list. We won't need vertical. We won't need a switch indicator. Okay. And I think we're almost there. And this changes to a queue list compute for us, and that becomes a queue dash item, and then that gets wrapped in a queue item section, and then we'll also say queue item label. No, we might need it. Yeah, no, we'll add it in. I think it adds a little bit of extra styling or something. Okay. Just jump in the main layout and see the problem that it's got. I can control click that. Ooh, no, I can't. Let's do a restart on Volar. Components, rooms. Okay, that's channel. That should be room. Let's try again. Huzzah. Okay. It looks like it's still passing channels down. That should now be rooms. Gosh, this ended up being more than I thought. And that should be rooms. And let's try again. There we go. Looks disgusting. Let's finally get rid of that stupid purple background and make it background, oh God, I don't know, gray 9. Whoops. Cool. All right. Now, I wanted to know that I want the users. Hang on, what's it read about now? I don't know, seems to be fine. I want the users to know what it is. What it is. God, my brain's starting to go. I want to have the hashtag symbol there as well. I know a few services do this. And there we go. The problem now is that we lose, for some reason, the connection to the server ID there. Yeah, there should be a way that we maintain knowing what the server is. So if I go to the... I'll figure that out later. Let's just leave it at this for now. All right, I think that's working well enough. Automatically selects it. And now if I go to app extension by default and I refresh, will it automatically select that for me? No, it did not. I wonder why that is. It should be matching. Oh, it's going to be generating a new UUID every time. So let's do this. Let's go to the chat server index data. And let's give both of these, well, all of these an ID. Let's go with that. Okay. So if I select one now, and then refresh the page, selected by default. We can do a bit of work on the styling, but I think that's pretty good. And it's pretty easy to just start prototyping and use fake data. And it's going to be trivial to swap this out with the backend because that local data thing I'm currently using is going to be really easy to swap out. One more thing I will do, though, is just creating a new server because I want to make sure we've got to create Composable that'll work as well. So we get our plus button. This shows the create dialog. I do this a very kind of different way. You might not be used to the way I do this. So this might be an interesting, I don't know, lesson, or you might hate it. First I need to finish some work I was doing before. Create dialog. Why doesn't it like that? Oh, it requires a default value. It doesn't have. Okay. So I've created a base dialog, which just adds a little bit of extra stuff to Quasar's dialog component. And then I'm going to create a base create dialog, which is based on the base dialog. So what it does is it essentially just creates a default slot in there, but then also adds a Q dash button with a label equal to create. And all that does is emit create. That should be out. Click is equal to emit create. There we go. And now let's come in here and we'll have an event there, which is create. And we don't need a payload. It just needs to know when it's creating. I don't think we need any props passed through as well because everything is just going to be the same as the beat dialog. And this needs to be, whoops, const emit. Actually, Vue might have fixed the new way of defining emits. Last time I tried it, it wasn't working, but I'm pretty sure they've fixed those problems ever since. So soon I'm going to start using the new way that Vue has of defining emits, which is just a little bit prettier than this. Actually, let's see if we can do it now. I think you can do it like that. Create, and it returns. Oh man, I can't remember how to do it. Hang on. I really want to know this. Okay, so it is an array, I'm pretty sure. And then I think the first thing you give it is the name of the thing. No, this isn't feeling right to me. Okay, so let's say Vue 3.3. I know they did a blog on this. And they wrote a section on defining emits. Okay, it's an object that receives an array of the thing. So we can basically just say create returns nothing. So what if it's void? I think you can literally just do that. All right, that does look better, doesn't it? So, all right, that's the create dialog. Now on the main layout, the create chat server dialog is just going to be now a B create dialog. B stands for base, by the way. Right. So let's just do a test in there. And eventually when I have form generators as well, this will just like whack the form in there for me. But for now, we don't have that. Yeah, cool. Doesn't quite look right, so I've done something wrong here. So we're in a queue card here, so I probably just have to go, yeah, come in here and have a slot for after. Name is equal to after. And then let's have a slot for before. Okay, and then this button gets put into an after slot. Okay, let's try that and see if it works. Hmm. Hmm. It did, but that's not what I wanted. Yeah, so let's get rid. Okay, before and after still makes sense there. And we got the slot inside of here. And actually, I want to negate that, by the way. I want to change that to hide toolbar. Um, if not props.toolbar, and that would now be an and, not props.title. But anyway, the point I was getting at is I got a card, and the slot should go into that card. So that test should be just above. create. I thought that's how cards worked. Oh, well, this needs to be full width as well. Maybe that's what I'm missing. Starting to lose brain cells. Keep at it, Lugu. You got this. Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so by default, I'm also going to put that in a cue card section, I think. Or is that putting too much in there? No, because all create dialogues are going to basically look the same. And so I always want them to be in a cue card section with a full width button at the bottom. Yeah, that's kind of the idea of what I'm going for. And then maybe you pass through, we can already pass through the title. So how about this? We'll say, in this case, the title is equal to create server. Let's see what that does. Yep, that works. It's done something real funky though with the toolbar. Yep, I put the class on the wrong spot on the title. Silly bee. And of course I would want the text to be white as well. At least by default. And then maybe later on we can have a look at how we can do some interesting things to style this based on some analytics on the color. Okay, that's looking good. I also want the create button to be primary, at least by default. So let me just quickly come in here, steal that. And the color is optional. By default, it's primary. And we will pass the color through to the dialog. And we will use that same color on the button. So by default, it's primary, but we can easily change the color mix for this dialog. Okay, next, for my dialogues, I want to have round buttons, and I want the size to be a little bit smaller. So let's do that. And now when we create a create dialog, it's really easy. Ooh, no, I don't want that to be small. I liked how it was already. Okay, so the next thing will be adding the form in there. So this should be pretty easy to do, and I get to test out the new Composable. And the way I do this is a little bit different to what you might be used to. So we're going to try using views new defined model as well. We'll say const model, I will say form is equal to define model, and then we can just pass through there a default, which is an empty object. Now we can come in here and start. Oh, hang on, the form wouldn't be there. Got my levels of abstraction wrong. Yeah, here we go. So now on the chat server dialog, we end up with code that's going to be way simpler. At least that's what we're aiming for here. So we have a queue form, and we can come up here and start modeling stuff on the form. So queue input with a label equal to name for the name of the server. Model is equal to form dot. I should be able to type this as well. I think I can say, oh, that's right. I say Pina ORM form. I created a cool type for this that allows me to take a Pina ORM model and just turn it into something that kind of feels like a form. And this would be a chat server. So I could just pass that chat server through, and now we get really nice typing on our form. Pretty cool. So let's give this a color. No, wait. The first thing you'd give it is a name. Then let's just do a Q color. I'll do a class is equal to Q gutter on the y-axis of medium. We just want to do something basic for now. And we'll set that equal to color. What else have we got? We've got the avatar source. So I'll want an upload for that, but I'm not going to build that out yet. So for now, we'll just make it an input, which is going to be avatar image source or URL. Let's go with that. Okay. Whoa, what have I done wrong? Oh. Duplicate model name. Oh, so it looks like define model also wants to know that form is the name we use. You can't just give it the name and it infers it from the name of your const there. Oh man. Really? Define model. Yes, my automatic registers a problem and returns a ref that can do. Hmm. So there's got to be a way to say, oh man, there's got to be a way to say what the name is. So you can't have more than one defined model. What was that local option? Is this a string? No. Type validator? Man, I find this really hard to believe that I wouldn't even be able to do that, to just give it a name. Yeah, but that's what it's saying. Duplicate model name, model value. So it looks like it's used this defined model and tried to use model value as the name, even though I've given it a constant form. I just figured it would infer that. Yeah, okay. We're going to go back to define models, which is what we get from a library I'm using called... shit, I can't remember what it's called, but I need to tell you what it's called because it's so cool. I know that it's got a volar extension. Man, why can't I remember this? Yeah, view macros. Really obvious name too. All right, so we're using view macros, which gives us what I'm about to show you now, where I can say const form model value is equal to define modules, plural, and then we can just pass through here what form looks like, which is that type. I already did that. And then model value, which is a Boolean. There we go. So those should be being used now. And yeah, all right. So now we've got that form and it's being mapped in a form under the hood there. I would actually rather turn this into its own component. No, it's so small. It just doesn't matter for now. To keep refreshing, which is driving me nuts, but it'll be all right. Can I read properties undefined reading name? Form.name. Okay, because we didn't pass the form in. Blah, that makes sense. So let's jump back into the main layout. This is definitely getting overwhelming now. I've got to clean this up. It doesn't like something there, but I'm going to ignore that for now. That models, this is where we model the form. Okay, so now we finally get to use the composable. I'm going to do a reveal on this file and then create a new file called use chat server creator.ts. There we go. And now I can say composable. I've got a cool snippet for that. And we'll say const creator is equal to use create resource. And that's coming out of Pina ORM local, which is the new one we were working on earlier. Bam. So now we can pass through to their chat server. So that gets imported there. And chat service indexer, we've now got chat server creator. Get that imported. Nice, all my import stuff's working right now, which is always a nice feeling. And I believe this doesn't give us a form by default. And for some reason I did that intentionally because I remember trying to create forms by default was a little bit of a nightmare. Actually, did I do that? Do we get a form? Mm, okay, looks like we do get a form. All right. And this form, is it using the right typing? Yeah, pin your RM form. Okay, cool. So that means that all I have to do to model the form now is say v model form, which is going to be our chat server creator. I want to use your form. I want to use your form. Okay, so now when the user clicks on create, because we're using the be create dialog, we should easily be able to just say, yo, when the user clicks create, then just call create, const emit is equal to, okay, I really want to see if I can remember this now. Create empty array. So we say emit, whoops, I wrote that wrong. Emit create. Cool. And so essentially we just say now, hey, when this wants to be created, chat server creator, I want you to create this. This is really cool because we're doing a lot of stuff that's going to make things easier in the future. It's going to be really easy to create dialogues and stuff like that. All right, another thing we're missing is some sort of spinner for creating. So I should be able to say creating is equal to chat server creator dot creating dot value. Now that needs to be accepted into here. Define props. So let's do that next. Interface, props, and then we'll say define props here and pass those props through. And we want props that show if we're creating, which is going to be a Boolean. So now we can come down here and we'll pass that through to the create dialog. Creating is equal to creating. And a lot of you might right now might be going, oh my God, he's props drilling. Boo! Get over it. Man, that was, I don't know why I said that. That felt really icky. I think I got a little bit salty when people got on my case about props drilling. And I just don't see it. At least when I'm coding, I really just don't see the problem. And believe me, I've looked hard at the alternatives. And I definitely see some merit to them. But for the things I'm building, and where I want the flex, okay, anyway, get off my high horse. What would I know? I'm just some dude sitting at his computer at home developing. Okay, so for here, we'll say loading is equal to creating. Creating gets passed through there. And now that should all flow through. Okay, what have I missed? Use rest is not defined. Okay, cool. So use create resource is now being used. So that's why we're getting that error. Use rest. It's trying to use rest here. So we get rid of that. And now we can ensure that this composable works. We don't need any of that. We don't need any of that. Validation errors and standard errors and has standard, basically any error related stuff. We won't get data back. Create repo form, reset form, form defaults, creating resources on create. Yep, that all is stuff we would use in this. No to that. Okay, so for what we actually do want is our resources in local storage now. Do we want to use local storage though? I've kind of mixed some concepts here because there's a difference. The two ways you can do this is with mock data or local storage. I think what I would prefer to do is to use local storage and not mock data. Yeah, okay. Okay. So in that case, let's go to use index resources, use local storage. So here's the part we got our resources. Instead of just a single resource, we've also got resources, which uses use local storage. So that should keep those two in sync. I should put this in one spot globally. I might do that later on, but I just want to get this working for now. Data, no. Creating, we need to know whether or not we're creating. So let's say creating is equal to a ref. That's false by default. And then we can say when you want to create, you say creating.value is equal to true. And then we've got a timeout for that. So we can say set timeout. And for those of you that were here, what happened to my, yeah, there we go. Earlier, you'll know about this, which is something state. Well, what was it? It's like config state or something like that. Yeah, there we go. Dot mock request timeouts. Huzzah! If optimistic, looks like that's not actually doing anything. Yeah, we can think about optimistic later. So then we persist that to the repo, and we also add this to our local storage. So we say resources.value, and this is view use syncing this with local storage, and then we do a push on there for our data, which is going to be what we have in that merged form. Oh man, this isn't going to be right because this actually has to be a list of IDs. All right, let's do this properly. Okay, so it's not an array, it's an object, and it's actually a ref that is a record with string and then instance type. Come on, Luke, use your brain. We just need to get through this and then we'll finish up. Meaning use index resources now has to follow that structure. Const resources, yeah, there it is there. So we'll paste that in there like that. Cool. So now it can't be resources.value. It has to be resources.value. We have to go through everything in the mock data. So maybe the best way to do this is just to grab everything out of the repo when we're done and set resources.value equal to that. Yeah, let's do that. Should we do that? Or is that going to work? That means when we do an index, everything gets pasted directly in and it doesn't get added on. So no, we don't want to do that. Okay, so what we actually want to do is we're going to say options.mockdata for each. We'll say data, and then we say resources.value, and we need to take the ID off that data, data.id, and that's going to be equal to whatever that data is. So everything is essentially indexed by the ID. And now when we do a repo.save, we say resources, we say object.values for our resources.value. And it's the same with this else statement here. Excuse me. To make sure it all gets inserted into the store correctly. And it means that we can just add things as we go, but then start off with some mock data. Maybe we remove the concept of mock data entirely now that I think about this. Anyway, we can think about that later. So if there's no data ID, we're just going to skip it. Let's do that. If not data.id, you know what? If there's no data ID, we'll generate one for it. So we'll say const ID equals, yeah, this will work. data.id, but if you don't have an ID for me, then I want you to generate one. And I think um, we got to generate a. Doesn't Quasar have one? Oh man, just give me a generator for an ID. Yeah, I'm sure Quasar's got one. Import. Oh, but do we have Quasar at this point? No, we don't, because this is Quasar agnostic. Ugh. Okay. UUID or UI. No, we can't pull it out of Pinion ORM. Oh, screw it. UUID generator. npm. There we go. There's a package literally just called UUID. Tremendous. So we say p add UUID, and then we can come up here and get that imported. Nice. Maybe here. Yep. Import UUID from UUID. Oh no, I've added it in the wrong spot. Slash packages slash Pina ORM. No. This is called Ryan Pina ORM local P. Let's just go up and grab that command and we'll add UUID. Whew. All right. What's deprecated there? Is that? Oh, it's view macros. Oh, all right. So we need to upgrade that at some point. So we got our UUID. Woo. And we generate one if we don't have one already, and therefore that is now reliable. Thank you, TypeScript, for keeping us true to ourselves. Now we do a vol restart on that. This should now import correctly. Really? No, I don't believe it. JavaScript, GUID generator. You're telling me that this isn't typed? This super popular package. I mean, I already know it's just going to be a string anyway. Maybe I'm just using it wrong. Yeah, actually, I think I'm using it wrong. No, all right. So let's add that. P add to dev, the types. Really not a big deal. It's not hard to do. And give that about 10 seconds. Is there still the issue with Vite versus Webpack and HMR? I don't really know. I am getting HMR problems right now, but I don't think it's Vite related. It's because the project I'm working on uses REPLs, and I think those REPLs are kind of screwing things up. Is it possible to touch on Hydrogen versus Quasar New? Curious. Oh, yeah. Well, the reason I use Hydrogen is because Quasar New didn't give me the flexible I need. So I follow a very the architecture I use is very much crafted to the way me and my team code. So, for example, if I show you the menu here, I've got a modules directory and I don't even have a components folder. So this is my source directory and everything is organized in modules. And I have folder structures that make things very reliable. And it actually allows me to create some really cool UI tooling on top of my projects. And that reliability, and because of that extra structure, I just need to have my own generators. And they do a lot more work for me based on the kinds of projects I build. And if there's anything I ever want to add into my generator, it's really easy. I just go into templates. When I generate a new page, for example, let's go to component, the component for that page. I can then just come in here and change some of the details. And then everybody on my team now generates pages the same way based on what we've changed there. Yes, I've been working on this for a while, this kind of modular Quasar structure, and it really has standardized quite nicely over the past like 1 or 2 years. So there's barely anything that I changed in the structure anymore. So I'm pretty happy with it. It's like a lot more battle tested than it used to be. Yeah, so things like test files as well. When I create a new module, I get my components directory. I get some sample data as well, and I get a type. I use Pina ORM to allow me to easily model my stuff on the front end, and it just scaffolds all that out for me rather than, you know, having to do that myself. So Quasar generators are cool, and you'll just find that as you code more, eventually you'll reach a point where you'll create your own generators because you start developing your own patterns. They don't have to be my patterns. If people work on my team, then, you know, they follow my patterns, but otherwise, yeah, I think it's kind of cool to have generators to standardize the way you do things. Hello, Luke. Hope you're doing good. I am doing well. Thank you. Okay, what was I up to? I don't know what's going on with the typing for this UUID library. Am I naming it wrong? No, it's definitely UUID. Okay, it looks like I might have just needed a vola restart. So now I should be able to say UUID v4. Okay, it's finally working. Woo! So resources now needs to be retyped. So let's come up here to our resources, and this is now going to be a record with a string and then model type. So basically this is all going into the store as an object now. So you can easily update data. It's easy to update objects. It's hard and slow to update arrays. So you always want to store your data inside of objects where it makes sense. Obviously you don't get it like that from the backend, and for good reason, because then it can't be ordered. But yeah, I always store things as objects where I can. So the reason we were doing that, okay, so we're fixing the way we insert data. So if we come in here, resources to value, yeah, so that's no longer a push. That should now give us an ID, and if we don't have an ID, we'll use the UUID generator. Cool. So we'll come in here, and I can basically just say here, if not merged form.id, then we'll give it an ID. Actually, it's probably better to just do that at the last second. I think otherwise TypeScript's probably going to get mad at me. So const ID is equal to merged form.id, but if we don't have an ID on the merged form, then we're going to generate one ourselves. Okay, this doesn't seem to have very good typing. I'm going to ignore this for now. I kind of just want to push on. Let's get that imported. And I want to do it with the binding that they've got as well. And now what we can do is say resources.value, and the ID is equal to that form. Oh man, I hate these red squigglies, even though I'm really confident that that code's going to work. That's something I can fix up later. Okay, as we were doing before, we don't need any of this error-related stuff. And for those of you that have come in later, essentially what I'm building for now is a way to work with data before I have a backend really quickly. So essentially, the way I build data using, the way I work with data using composables. So I use composables to help me deal with the dance between the front end and the back end. I want to make composables that I can easily just swap out later on with composables that use the back end. So these composables are using local storage, and then I'll be able to just swap them out for composables that use a back end when it's built out, which will make prototyping way faster. In fact, I'll be able to prototype stuff and even give it to people, and they'll be able to use it because it would just use local storage under the hood. And this isn't a new idea, but I just wanted to build it with the kind of tooling chain that I use. Okay, creating. I'm pretty sure I created a variable for that, so that should work now. Everything else looks pretty good to me. I think this is going to be one of those situations where I just got to try it and have a look at the errors that show up. All right, we got somewhere. Create shows us the form. So let's go ahead and make that form look a little bit nicer. Create chat server dialog. And all of those inputs are now going to have field on them. Let's try that again. Let's just call this one blah and random image SVG maybe? Random image SVG. That'll do. And we'll copy that image address. Let's see if this works. I'm going to put that somewhere just in case, because this might not work. All right, what went wrong? Okay, so somewhere it's, oh, cool. That actually worked. Wicked. Okay, looks like it's going to get replaced though because of that whole fake data thing that I built earlier on. So I'm going to go ahead and cull that because I don't want to use it anymore. So for the chat server creator, oh, by the way, like this is why I love this architecture. I can go into the main layout. If I want to see all the stuff related to the main layout, then I just do reveal. For me, the hotkey is Control Alt M, but you can do Control Shift P reveal to see the current file in your file browser. And then I can just come in here and go and put all of the stuff I need to the side. And in this case, I wanted to jump into the chat server creator. So all I do is I go, there's my creator, and then just control click in there, and I'm at the code that I want. So I really love this idea of pulling things apart and then essentially just sort of control clicking your way towards where you want to be. And one of the cool things about that is to get out of where you want to be, all you have to do is control W to get back there. So I can go, hopefully Vola's working right now, chat server avatars tabs. And now I can just do Control W to get back to where I was originally. And usually when you're coding, that's what it's like. You're usually drilling in and then coming out, and drilling in and coming out. So that's what I do. Control click, Control click, Control click, Control W, Control W, Control W. Just drilling in and out of components like that. And if there's two things I need to focus on, then you just do a Control 2 to do a split. Or if I want to see these things side by side, I can do a Control Alt click just to get those two side by side now. And I can kind of like do the play with the dance between the component I'm working on as a parent and the component I'm working on as a child. Cool. All right. If you've watched up to this point, you're probably good enough to not actually need to know what I just told you then, but I told you anyway. What was I focused on again? I've been working for too long without a break. Yeah, so the problem was we were sending in fake data for the indexer, and I want to stop doing that. So let's get rid of this mock data here now. Get rid of that as well. Refresh the page. Yeah, and this still actually works because if we go to application, I should actually have it in local storage. We can see that it's in local storage under chat servers. Cool. All right, so the next thing I'll do see if we can add one on there because it looked like the one that I added in didn't actually work. Oh, we also need to make it so that this closes. So let's go to create chat server dialog. We got our model value here, so we can just say, well, actually, no, this is going to be on the main layout. So for the chat server creator, when it's done, we then want to close the dialog. So I'll show you how I usually do that. We've got this show create chat server dialog variable sitting inside of this component. I just take it out of there and I put it into my creator, right? And then return it here. And now show create chat server dialog, bit of a mouthful, doesn't need to be a mouthful anymore because of this new context it has. We know that it's related to the chat server, so we can rename that to show dialog. We can simplify the crap out of it. And now I can come down here and say chat, what do we call it? Chat server creator dot show dialog dot value is equal to true. And now that it's sitting on the creator, I know I'm going really fast here, I can come in here and simply say, hey, on create, so when you're done creating, I want you to set show dialog equal to false. So now that code is kind of where it belongs. So let's give this another try. All right, something's not working there. All right, I haven't named. Looks like I left that there somewhere. Yeah, here we go. That should be. So what's the one I just changed then? Oh, that's for showing the dialogue. All right, here we go. That also needs to be modeled down at Nya. Another cheeky refresh. Come in here. And we'll say blah. Get that URL. Haha, knew I'd need you again. Give it a color. I think that'll do. So it gets created twice for some reason. So I've probably done something weird inside of my composable. And it just doesn't finish up. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into that use create resource composable and see what's going on here. So we set creating equal to true. We never set it to false. We have a set timeout. When we're done, we say creating is equal to false. We also want to say when we're done to call all of the onCreate callbacks. So what do they expect? They also expect to have the thing that was created. All right, so I think what we might be able to do is just say onCreate callbacks dot, you know what, I'm just not going to give it the thing that was created. I don't see why I would ever actually need that. Yeah, so let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. So these callbacks are much simpler now. Doesn't need a type anymore. And let's just go through and find all of these. We don't need to send that through. On create, what did I do wrong here? Create callback. So that will just be an array like that. All right, we're getting close. And I won't need you anymore. Oh, I will need that bottom one though. There we go. Man, this is actually permeates the system, doesn't it? Whew. All right, so we should be able to grab all those callbacks and just run through them one at a time. So now we can say for each callback, and we're literally just going to run it. It doesn't even need to pass through anything. All right, so the spinner is fixed. This should now be closed. Now, one thing that was wrong is that it was showing up twice. I wonder why it was showing up twice. We only do repo.save once, don't we? Okay, and we say resources and then the thing. Yeah, we only did that once as well. Weird. And it doesn't show up after the fact, so it looks like it's not actually being inserted into the store correctly. Yeah, so if I go to chat service here, oh, we've actually ended up with a double up of view. So there's probably something I could do to fix that. Oh, because this is still reading as an array. That actually might be the problem. Let's go ahead and delete that. Yeah, now we get no service. Because originally it was an array, so I think it's having trouble reading that value. So we'll come in here, grab you again, and I'll paste you at the bottom. Call this blah, give it a color, create. And it's showing up twice still. What? The other thing is something's happening on rooms list there. I think that isn't right. List. No. Create chat server. Okay, it's on the create chat server dialog. I define my emits there. Yep. Define emits create. So let's go to the create dialog. Maybe it doesn't like this empty array that I'm using in the emit. That could be it. It might just be struggling with that. I don't know. Emit create. And there it is there. Dialog picks it up. Emits create. There it is there. Yeah, okay. Oh well, that's all right. What I really want to figure out is this weird error where it's kind of duplicating there. And if I refresh the page, okay, I do get them back. And let's check that it does actually look like that in the store. Yeah, so it just inserts it twice. Chat server creator dot create is what gets called. Yeah, when create is emitted. So then chat server creator, if we jump in there, hits create. And then we got the repo saved there. So I wonder if this has got something to do with use index resources triggering something as well. Yeah, because they're both using use local storage. I wonder if it ends up with some weird sort of feedback loop. Um, because I know local storage has like a delay on it. Oh, so I would have to create a map, like a local storage map of all of my resources, and add them in one at a time if I wanted to have the same one, and I have to just map them by the entity. Bugger, this is really frustrating. Oh, so I wonder if this gets called again. Okay, well, let's do some recon here. Let's see if this is getting called twice. Creating. Debug time. No, bugger. Bugger. Debugger. Yes, good one, Luke. Okay, so that is getting called twice. What? All right, that's good to know. Why is it getting called twice? Create chat server. I mean, that's got... Hmm. There's nothing that says create in here, is it? Creator. No, it's just not happening in there. Man, this is weird. Oh, hang on. What happens when you click on it? No, that's just for showing the dialogue. I mean, this is why we put things in composables, because once it's solved um, permanently. Okay, let's see if create gets called somewhere weird inside of here. No, I see no reason that would get called just randomly. But this actual function itself is getting run twice. Okay, so what else can we do to look into this? This might be emitting create twice. Yeah. Oh, by the way, Vue now has console.log inside of here. That's the other thing. I could just open that up. Pretty sure it's only getting clicked once. Okay, anyway, let's do a console log here for creating. That in there. Okay, so that's only emitting once, so that's not where the problem is. Let's follow the chain. So the next part of the chain would be main layout. So then that gets triggered, which then triggers chats. I mean, we're already there now. And the one thing I could do though to check this is just say function. We'll do async function create. And we'll overwrite the create function and we'll just say console.log creating. And we'll try it there. And we'll just keep making our way out till we figure out where this is happening. Huh. Okay. So the problem is somewhere there. The problem is this gets triggered twice. In fact, I can just cut that and do a console.log triggered. There we go. That's getting triggered twice. Why? We now have our big why. Oh my God, it's so obvious. So B create dialog emits create, and this is emitting create as well. So I think it's essentially just calling it twice, so I don't need it there. Oh, come on, Luke, you silly boy. Let's try this, and then I'm ready to finish up. Okay, I'm pretty sure that I only created it once. So now we can actually just go into local storage, do a delete on that, and that's deleted all of our servers. And now I can just come in here and say another, whack that in there, create, and there we go. Cool. All right. Well, the point of all of this is now in the future, it's going to be really, really easy for me to just create dummy data. And I'll be able to develop things really quickly, just creating, updating, and deleting using local storage. And then when I'm ready, just swap it out with a real API. And we've even got an artificial spinner as well. So when I refresh the page here, we get that 500 millisecond artificial spinner. And if we get sick of it because we just want to develop things quickly and we're thinking, I already know that my spinners work, then all we have to do is jump into our config for an Orion Pina ORM local and change that to either 0, in which case it's going to be instant. So if I refresh the page, that just comes up instantly now. Or we set it to something, much longer if we really wanted to see that spinner spin for a long time. 1.5. And there we go. By the way, the thing I'm building, I personally think is really, really cool. So this is actually a REPL, but it's only the display part of a REPL. And if you click on this button here, you can see the entire REPL. And this is basically just, I'm using Vue REPL to do this, and I was able to get Quasar working with Vue REPL. So you can add files and do really cool stuff like that. Yeah, it's really, really awesome. And you can literally just grab Quasar stuff. So let's just grab, for example, a Q button. Oops, what have I done? View components button. That's what I want. We'll just grab one of these examples here. Oh, it's because it scrolled to the bottom. There we go. And copy it. And then we can jump back in here and just paste that directly in there. And everything just works. And now you can show things to people and you can chat to them about it too. So you can be like, I don't know if this is in a working state right now, but hi, such and such. I tried this and it worked. And then you go, currently, the editor isn't kind of inline, but that's what I'm working on now, getting the editor into TipTap. So I'm using TipTap here. And you can say REPL for Quasar, and then just add in a template. For example, and let's come in here and say Q-button, do something super simple. Label is equal to beep. I don't know if this is in a working state because I've been editing it. Yeah, okay, it's not in a working state right now, but that's fine. I can work at it later on. Yeah, and essentially you can just send messages like that. It's going to be just like Discord, except you've got a REPL built in there. So you can actually like share examples with people, and you can create your own REPL environments that you can add into the chat as well. So if you wanted to use, for example, Svelte or React or something else and create a REPL for that, or just plain JavaScript or JSON, you can create your own REPLs, which will then, and you basically say in a view component, this is what it looks like inline, and this is what it looks like when it's inside of the editor. And then once you've done those two things, it's then integrated into the app, and people can select REPLs, add REPLs to chat environments. If you had a Quasar channel, you might only add Quasar-related REPLs. So for example, you wouldn't just let people do whatever they want. Yeah, and I just think it's a really, really cool concept that you can then create your own coding atmosphere, like your own coding community where people can easily share, the problems that they have, or people can easily share cool ideas they have for components literally within the chat. And there's lots of cool things that we could do with this. It's really exciting. So I've already got the live chat component working. Now I'm just kind of like going, all right, I've got the proof of concept. Let's scope out now and see if we can build kind of the larger picture of what this will look like. So yeah, that's what I've been working on. And what else? I think that's it. Oh, the other thing is you can add your own highlighters. So if you're in like a really niche community and you have you're using a language that doesn't have any highlighters, built in to this chat app, I've made it so that you can dynamically add your own highlighters. And this is all done with CDN. So you can just point to like an ES module on the web somewhere, and then it's just going to pull that ES module in and then allow you to essentially go like 3 backticks, whatever your language is, and you can just like select it from a drop-down list here. So at the moment we have TypeScript and JavaScript. I might have like 4 languages that are related to Quasar, but then another community would only show the languages related to their community. So you just create a chat environment that's really tailored for developers and for their specific community. That's what I'm building. Hope you guys enjoyed this stream. Some of it was fun, some of it was probably boring, but that usually was what it's like when you're building something live on YouTube. I'm going to go take a break. I've been at it for a while. But yeah, hope you liked it, and I'll see you in a later stream.